Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 16th February 2021. Let us begin with the first article today. Indians concerned about privacy, Chief Justice of India. So Chief Justice of India on Monday said that Indians have grave apprehensions about privacy from Facebook and WhatsApp. This is in particularly regarding WhatsApp's updated privacy policy, wherein it has become conditional for the user to share their data with their parent company Facebook. So a group of activists filed a petition in front of the Supreme Court of India. The case is being heard by a 3-bench judge headed by Chief Justice himself. During the arguments yesterday, Chief Justice said that Indians have grave apprehensions about privacy from Facebook and WhatsApp. Accordingly, he said that people have you may be 2 or 3 trillion company, but people value their privacy more, and it is our duty to protect people's privacy. He was addressing the lawyers appearing for the social media and instant messaging giants, that is Facebook and WhatsApp. Though Facebook owns WhatsApp, it treats WhatsApp as a independent entity. So he said that we are telling you what we heard and read. People think that if A sends a WhatsApp message to B and B sends to C, the circuit of message is revealed to Facebook. This is particularly true in case of the updated privacy policy, where till now WhatsApp didn't share user data with Facebook. Whatever user data that was generated by WhatsApp was stored in WhatsApp servers alone. With the new updated policy, WhatsApp can now share the user generated data with its parent company Facebook for better advertising and better tracking algorithms. Now the concern comes when earlier what was the policy was WhatsApp used to ask whether users wanted to share their data with Facebook or not. So the users had the choice to whether opt in for the sharing of data or opt out of the sharing of data. Now with the updated policy, the users have no choice, particularly the Indian users. And the government of India also flagged the same issue with the CEO of WhatsApp by saying that while the citizens of European Union had the option of whether choosing to stay in or stay out of the sharing agreement, while coming to the Indian users alone, you made it compulsory to share the data with Facebook. This point was raised by the many activists and government of India with the WhatsApp. Why the differential treatment between the Indian citizens and European citizens? Accordingly, the Chief Justice said that this is an apprehension of the nation. Privacy is part of our fundamental rights. They, particularly the companies of WhatsApp and Facebook, cannot compromise our privacy, and they cannot differentiate. As I said earlier, the case is twofold. One is the compulsory opt-in condition for sharing of data with Facebook, and the second one is differential privacy policies for European Union citizens and Indian citizens. Why the differential treatment? We being a population of more than 1.3 billion, we generate more data than European citizens. Then how come you are differentiating us with them? The case is still going on, and the Supreme Court might come out with a judgment, either setting a benchmark judgment in regards to data sharing on social media platforms altogether. Coming to the next article, China pulls back from Finger 4. So the disengagement at Pangong Tso Lake will be supposed to be over in a week, according to officials from the government of India. So both China and India reached an agreement at 9th commander level talks and agreed that both sides will pull their deployed soldiers and equipment and machinery from their current locations to pre-April 2020 locations, maintaining status quo. So the agreement was to pull back everything, meaning they have to take down their structures, they have to pull back their infantry or mechanized units, and they also have to pull back soldiers stationed there, and they have to restore the landform to its original condition, meaning if they had dug any holes or made any permanent structures, they have to completely level them down and restore it to its natural state. Now accordingly, the China has dismantled jetties that were constructed on the lake, Pangong Tso Lake, and also helipad near Finger 4. Now Chinese troops have started clearing the Finger 4 area on the north bank of the lake, and the ongoing disengagement on the north and south bank of the lake by both sides is to be completed by a week. Now our Rakshana Mantri has said that there are more modalities that has to be worked out, but let us complete this engagement first. Then in future discussions and future engagements by the way of talks, we are going to iron out all the differences. That is the hope from the government of India. Chinese troops have built up heavy defenses and structures between Finger 8 and Finger 4, including fortified gun positions on the ridges of Finger 4 overlooking Indian positions. Now the Chinese are also dismantling the structures on the hill ridges also. The Indian army had also set up positions around Finger 4 in the end of August 2020. Now we are also dismantling the structures we have constructed there. It's a mutual process at very slow pace, because everybody is on tethered hooks looking which side will commit a mistake, so that we can take advantage of, because there is no mutual trust between Indian side and the Chinese side. Coming to the next article, death trap. So everybody knows that Tamil Nadu is the capital for firework manufacturing, but Tamil Nadu firework manufacturing industry has a very bad track record in safety standards due to high percentage of accidents that happen every year and the loss of life that occurs every year. So for the past decade, if you look back and see the numbers of people that have lost their lives due to accidents in either fireworks manufacturing industry or its allied industry, it's always in high number or double digits. But till now there hasn't been any concrete action to at least solve the issue or at least study what has been going on in firework industry in Tamil Nadu. Thousands of workers in Tamil Nadu work in firework industry remain trapped in unsafe conditions despite an unending series of accidents that keeps drawing attention to their plight. Yet there has been no action taken. Such tragedies, caused predominantly by gross violation of norms governing the hazardous industry and human error in handling explosive substances, have somehow occurred with frequent regularity, because every year we keep on seeing news articles and special focus articles showing how many people have lost their lives due to accidents, either way of the hazardous materials or mishandling due to human error. Let us take the past year as an example. In 11 months, 25 lives were lost in major accidents in other firework factories in Tamil Nadu. Most of the victims are women. In some cases, children below the age of 15 and 18 lost their life due to unsafe work conditions, and there is no scrutiny on who is working there, or as the dead end up in statistical records on the ground, there is only short-term action in the way of registration of cases, arresting the accused, identification of causes, and a token of inspections post accidents in other factories, issuance of warnings and safety advisories. These tend to happen, mostly remain on paper themselves. The causes of these accidents are always have been well documented, because most of these accidents have eyewitnesses, and the safety authorities or the agencies that deal with such accidents know the causes for these accidents also, because these accidents happen with so much frequency that everybody knows why these accidents keep happening and repeating themselves on a yearly basis, where loss of life is huge, particularly unlicensed units that have mushroomed in and outskirts of Sivakasi. Sivakasi is the most famous fireworks city in Tamil Nadu. For entire India, most of the fireworks come out of Sivakasi. It is the capital of firework manufacturing. Mostly escape scrutiny till explosion occurs. So what is the concern now? A greater concern is illegally subleasing of contracts for manufacturing crackers by licensed units. One of the major concerns right now is, in order to manufacture fireworks in our country, you need to have license. What happens is, when a person buys or attains the license for manufacturing the crackers at very high cost, and instead of manufacturing by himself, he subleases the license he got to some other XYZ or unknown company. When a person has to receive the license, he has to pass certain safety standards, and his factory or manufacturing unit must meet certain safety criteria. But when the person is subleasing, there is no government authority overseeing the subleasing aspect of it. It becomes a person to person transaction instead of a person to government transaction. Storage of dangerous materials that go off on friction being stored very close to one another, and the number of people who are allowed to work in such factories are never maintained, because most of the people, let us say a factory has to have a workers limit of 5 or 10 people, usually 20 or 30 people are working in the factory. There are no safety protocols followed here. This leads to a case or a situation where the chemicals and the people, high volume people in low volume spaces, and highly dangerous chemicals that go off on friction are very close to each other and combined places, closed places without any ventilation, and the chance for accidents to occur becomes exponentially higher. So this always gets overlooked, because when the person takes a sublease from the manufacturer for fireworks, generally the factory tends to be just a shed with 30 people or 40 people working in close proximity with dangerous chemicals without no regard for safety norms. And the second stage comes when untrained workers and the piece rate system, because most of the workers are uneducated and they are untrained because they are cheap, and the way that they are paid is by piece, meaning if you make 100 crackers a day, you'll be paid 100 rupees. If you make 50 crackers that day, you'll be paid 50 rupees. It's a piece by piece rate system, which includes people to race to produce more units per day, and this leads to more accidents. While the Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization offers training for worker, shortage of labor has prompted the industry to hire new recruits with limited skills. Though there are organizations that are willing to train people in firework manufacturing or firecracker manufacturing, it's a very labor intensive industry. They need lots and lots of people to manufacture or meet their production deadline or criteria. So instead of waiting for people to get trained by one organization, these people overlook the entire process and hire amateurs or untrained people, and this will always lead to accidents. As I said, it is still a very heavy labor intensive industry. Though automation has been promised on many occasions by both central government and state governments, and it was also promised in the parliamentary committees and parliament floor itself, it still remains a distant dream. The only way to solve this issue is periodic inspections at factories, sustained crackdown and stringent penal action against violators, which are non-negotiable, had to be implemented on a daily basis, meaning it has to be a constant endeavor. Coming to the next article, farm laws and taxation of farmers. So the reason I want to read this article particularly, because it talks about two things: OECD ratings and net taxations. In the previous classes, we had discussed an entire editorial about how OECD ratings do not work in India and what are the drawbacks of those OECD ratings that are applied on Indian farmers and Indian agricultural sector, and how newspapers and foreign research papers use this flawed OECD data to show that Indian agricultural market is always showing a negative growth. I suggest you go to that editorial and study that, or at least view that entire part on OECD ratings and how it is flawed. The second part is net tax. Whenever agricultural taxation is talked about, you always come to hear about a term called net tax. I want you to understand what net tax means. So net of tax refers to a value found after expenses have been accounted for. Therefore, the net of tax is simply the amount left after taxes have been subtracted. So let us say you are buying a pen for 1000 rupees and the tax that get imposed on the pen is 1000 rupees. So 100 rupees. So the entire amount that you have to pay to buy the pen is 1100 rupees. That becomes the net value of the entire pen. Now what is the net tax or net value here? You have to subtract the tax amount that has been imposed on the pen. The tax here imposed is 100 rupees. So 1100 minus 100 is 1000 rupees. So the net value of the pen is 1000 rupees. I repeat, net of refers to a value found after expenses have been accounted for. Therefore, the net of tax simply is the amount left after taxes have been subtracted. That is what net taxation means. So the major rationale offered in favor of liberalizing Indian agriculture was that farmers were always net tax. Instead of liberalizing or asking for liberalization of agricultural farmers, one of the arguments that we always make is agricultural sector on a whole has been net taxed, and it is always a bad thing or a negative thing, or it is always brought up with a negative connotation. In other words, income of farmers were kept artificially lower than what they should have been in order to protect the farmer sector and protectionistic ideas or some protectionistic tendencies. So both the arguments for and against the farm laws seem to have missed the point where the ratings or the way which we consider farmers' income has been always flawed, and the approach taken up by the government in regarding particularly to farm sector on a whole needs an entire rethink. So I repeat again, I would like you to go back in time and read an article or at least listen to the class where we have discussed about the OECD flawed rating system and how it leads to a lot of negative reporting or a negative approach to farm sector on a whole in India. Coming to the next article, Geospatial Data Policy Liberalized. So yesterday the government came out and announced a liberalized geospatial policy. So geospatial data is nothing but satellite imagery data or any other data that studies geological features on Earth particularly. But in the case of India, till now the geospatial domain was occupied by the government itself. It did not allow private players to use or develop their own data sets in particularly regarding geospatial data. If a company wants geospatial data, they have to approach the government or approach agencies that had permissions from the government to take satellite images or record geospatial data on particularly Indian subcontinent. Now the government has come out with a policy where anybody can generate their own geospatial data. So they had liberalized norms governing the acquisition, production of geospatial data, a move to help boost innovation in the sector and create a level playing field for public and private entities. So under the new guidelines, the sector will be deregulated and the aspects such as prior approvals or permissions for surveying or mapping and building applications based on that data have been done away with. Now anybody can come in, anybody can survey, anybody can map the area or topography of any region, and they can generate their own applications and sell that data to private users or in some cases the government itself. Now all the reforms or regulations that were preventing such private activities were done away with. The reform will benefit the country's farmers, startups and private sector, the public sector and research institutions to drive innovations and build scalable solutions. If you want to take up any project in India, you need to understand large-scale projects particularly, you need to have topography and mapping related information with you so that you can plan your project in a better way. Till now, you had to approach government agencies or few private players in the market who were cornering the market by quoting higher prices because there was no other way to access the same information. By removing the obstacles in this sector, that is geospatial sector, private players can come in, bringing down the prices of maps and mapping technology or topographical data of Indian subcontinent will ensure free access of information, all while improving employment as a way of indirect relation because new companies will come in the sector of mapping in India. So according to the minister himself, the easing of norms will greatly help in several sectors that are suffering because of non-availability of high quality maps. As I said, most sectors including agriculture sector depend on mapping, and infrastructure sector, particularly public infrastructure sector, also greatly depends on mapping. Till today there were no high quality mapping solutions. Now private sectors can come in. This will indirectly boost mapping industry, that is geospatial industry in India. Coming to the next article, Bangladesh authorities send more Rohingya to Highlands. So Rohingyas are from Myanmar. Due to the genocide that happened in Myanmar, that was perpetuated by the military of Myanmar, Rohingyas fled from Myanmar into Bangladesh. So refugees who came into Myanmar, from Myanmar into Bangladesh, are now being relocated into a small island in Bay of Bengal that was being artificially developed by the government of Bangladesh. So Bangladesh government has faced a lot of criticism from activists and foreign governments regarding the approach that they have taken to resettle the refugees of Rohingyas. The island is very vulnerable to future weather events, meaning if there is any high storms or surge in storm waters or sea levels, there is a greater risk that the island is going to get submerged under water. Yet, despite all the criticism or pleas from private activists and foreign governments, including from the people of Rohingyas themselves, the Bangladeshi government went ahead and started relocating Rohingya refugees into the Bhasan Char island, that is specifically developed to accommodate these Rohingya refugees. As of yesterday, 2,000 more refugees have been sent into Bhasan Char island, which is situated in Bay of Bengal. Earlier, they were used to live, the refugees used to live in Cox's Bazar refugee camp. Now from there, the Bangladeshi government is shifting them to Bhasan Char island, that is in Bay of Bengal. Thank you. Have a good day.